There's a reason you're watching this exact video at this exact moment. Not because you searched for it, not because the algorithm randomly suggested it, but because an ancient mechanism of synchronicity has been activated. This video found you. And what you're about to discover is a manuscript so powerful, so precisely coded, that for centuries it was hidden from the masses, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. This scroll contains the operating principles of reality itself, the invisible architecture that shapes every moment of your existence. But here's what makes it dangerous. Once you truly understand what's written within these ancient pages, you can never go back to seeing the world the same way. Your perception will be permanently altered, and that's exactly why so few are given access to this knowledge when they're truly ready to receive it. As your logical mind tries to dismiss this as mysticism or fantasy, something deeper within you knows better. There's a part of your consciousness that has been waiting for this moment, waiting for the veil to be lifted, waiting for the codes to be revealed, waiting to remember what you've always known but somehow forgot. The knowledge I'm about to share doesn't come from modern books or university lectures. It predates our current civilization by thousands of years. It was carved into stone tablets, painted on temple walls, whispered in sacred groves. Those who possessed this wisdom didn't advertise it. They protected it. Because they understood that in the wrong hands, at the wrong time, this knowledge could destroy rather than liberate. Think about your life right now. The struggles you face, the patterns that keep repeating, the feeling that there must be more to existence than what you've been told. That intuition is correct. Because beneath the surface of everyday reality operates a system of laws more precise than physics, more reliable than mathematics. And once you understand how this system works, you gain access to possibilities that most people would consider impossible. The ancient scroll speaks of reality as a vast ocean of potentiality, responding moment by moment to invisible currents of consciousness. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is like dropping a stone into this ocean. The ripples spread outward, shaping the circumstances of your life in ways you've never imagined. But I need to warn you about something before we go deeper. This knowledge comes with responsibility. Once you see how reality actually operates, you can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or blind fate for your experiences. You'll understand that you've been participating in the creation of your reality all along, just unconsciously. And that recognition can be overwhelming for those who aren't prepared to embrace their true power. Thousands of years ago, in temples whose names have been erased by time, there existed guardian scholars who dedicated their lives to understanding the deepest mysteries of existence. These weren't religious fanatics or primitive believers. They were consciousness researchers, cosmic mathematicians, students of the invisible forces that animate all life. Among their discoveries was a series of principles so profound, so universally applicable, that they transcended culture, language, and era. These principles weren't invented. They were observed, tested, verified across generations. Like scientists discovering natural laws, these ancient observers mapped the territory of consciousness itself. The manuscript we speak of today represents the crystallization of their findings, not written in ordinary language, but encoded in symbols, transmitted through metaphor, hidden within stories that seem simple on the surface, but contain infinite depth for those with eyes to see. Picture walking through an ancient library, dust motes dancing in shafts of golden light. You run your fingers along countless scrolls until one seems to pulse with its own energy. As you unroll it, the symbols seem to shift and dance, arranging themselves into patterns your deeper mind recognizes, even if your conscious mind cannot yet decode them. This is how the ancient wisdom works. It bypasses the analytical mind and speaks directly to the part of you that already knows. The guardians of this knowledge understood something crucial. Wisdom cannot be forced upon anyone. It can only be received by those whose inner frequency matches its vibration. Like a radio that must be tuned to the right station, consciousness must be prepared to receive higher knowledge. Otherwise, it's just noise, just meaningless symbols, just stories without power. They develop tests, initiations, preparatory practices, not to exclude people out of elitism, but to ensure readiness. Because receiving this knowledge before you're prepared is like trying to run advanced software on an outdated computer. The system crashes. The person becomes confused, destabilized, sometimes even driven to madness by truths they cannot integrate. But you wouldn't be here, listening to these words, feeling that stirring in your chest, if you weren't ready. The very fact that this message has reached you means your consciousness has achieved the necessary frequency. The door that was closed is now opening. The scroll that was sealed is now revealing its secrets. What makes this manuscript different from all the spiritual teachings you may have encountered? It doesn't ask for belief. It doesn't demand faith. It simply describes the mechanics of how reality operates, leaving you free to test and verify through your own direct experience. It's less like a religious text and more like an owner's manual for consciousness, practical, precise, and utterly transformative when properly applied. The first revelation the scroll unveils is perhaps the most shocking. Physical reality is not the foundation of existence. It's the final result of a process that begins in realms far more subtle than matter. What we call the solid world is actually more like a holographic projection, a three-dimensional movie being projected by consciousness itself. This isn't metaphorical. The ancient masters discovered through direct perception what quantum physicists are only now beginning to prove with mathematics: that the observer and the observed are not separate. That consciousness doesn't just witness reality, it participates in its creation moment by moment. Imagine standing in a completely dark room. You can't see anything, but you know the room contains furniture, walls, objects. Now imagine you have a flashlight, and wherever you point it, that part of the room becomes visible, becomes real to your perception. Consciousness works similarly. Wherever you direct your attention, you collapse infinite potential into specific manifestation. The implications are staggering. It means that what you experience as your life isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. You're not a victim of circumstances, but a participant in their creation. And this participation isn't conscious for most people. They're creating by default, projecting unconscious patterns that manifest as repetitive experiences. Think about areas of your life where you face the same challenges repeatedly. Relationships that follow similar patterns. Financial situations that seem to recycle. Health issues that resurface. The ancient wisdom reveals that these aren't random occurrences or bad luck. They're the outer manifestation of inner frequencies you're broadcasting without awareness. But here's where it gets interesting. If unconscious patterns can create consistent, negative experiences, then conscious patterns can create consistent, positive ones. Not through wishful thinking or positive affirmations alone, but through understanding and working with the actual mechanisms of manifestation. The scroll describes consciousness as having different layers, like an ocean with surface waves and deep currents. Most people live entirely in the surface waves, the thoughts that come and go, the emotions that rise and fall. But beneath these surface movements flow deeper currents that actually determine where the waves will go. These deep currents are your core beliefs, your fundamental assumptions about reality, yourself, and what's possible. And here's the crucial part. These deep beliefs were mostly installed in you before you had the capacity to choose them. They came from parents, society, traumatic experiences, cultural programming, and now they run like invisible software, creating your reality from behind the scenes. The ancient practices were designed to access these deep currents, to bring them into conscious awareness where they can be examined and, if necessary, rewritten. Because until you change the deep programming, surface changes will always be temporary. You might force a new behavior for a while, but eventually, the deep current pulls you back to familiar patterns. This is why so many people fail at creating lasting change. They're working only with surface waves while ignoring the currents beneath. They're trying to think positive while their deep beliefs are broadcasting negativity. They're attempting to create abundance while their core programming believes in scarcity. The manuscript offers specific methods for accessing and altering these deep currents. not through force or suppression, but through a kind of conscious alchemy that transforms limiting patterns into liberating ones. It's precise work, requiring patience and dedication, but the results are permanent changes in how reality responds to you. As we delve into the second principle, the scroll reveals something that shatters conventional understanding of cause and effect. We've been taught to see causation as linear. You do something, and then something happens as a result. But the ancient wisdom shows that causation operates in far more mysterious ways. In the realm of consciousness, future states can influence present moments. Your destined encounters can draw you toward them before you consciously know they exist. The life you're meant to live already exists in potential, pulling you forward like an invisible magnet. This isn't fatalism, it's the recognition that consciousness operates outside the limitations of linear time. Consider moments in your life when you felt inexplicably drawn to a certain place, person, or decision. Looking back, you can see how that pull led to crucial developments you couldn't have predicted. This is the future reaching back through time, guiding you toward your highest potential through subtle feelings and intuitions. The manuscript calls this reverse causation, or destiny's pull. It's why sometimes you feel restless without knowing why, only to discover later that the restlessness was preparing you for a major life change. It's why certain people feel familiar the first time you meet them, because in the deeper realms of consciousness, you've already known them. This principle completely reframes how we approach life decisions. Instead of trying to figure everything out with the logical mind, the ancient practices teach us to feel for the pull of our highest timeline, to sense which choices align with our destined unfoldment and which ones lead to unnecessary detours. But sensing this pull requires a quiet mind and an open heart. The noise of modern life, the constant stimulation, the endless distractions, they all interfere with our ability to feel destiny's subtle guidance. This is why the ancient practitioners spent so much time in silence, in nature, in states of deep receptivity. They were tuning their consciousness to pick up signals from their future selves. The third principle the scroll reveals is perhaps the most practical: the law of resonance. Everything in existence vibrates at a specific frequency, and these frequencies either harmonize or clash with each other. When you understand this, you realize why certain people drain your energy while others uplift it, why certain places feel peaceful while others feel chaotic, why certain activities leave you energized while others leave you depleted. Your personal frequency is like your energetic signature. It's composed of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and the sum total of your consciousness at any given moment. And this frequency is constantly broadcasting into the field of existence, attracting experiences that match its vibration. The ancients discovered that you can consciously adjust your frequency through specific practices. Music was one of their primary tools. Certain tones and rhythms can shift consciousness into higher states. Breathwork was another. Specific breathing patterns can rapidly alter your energetic vibration. Movement, particularly sacred dance and martial arts, was used to embody new frequencies until they became natural. But the most powerful frequency shifter they discovered was gratitude. Not the mental exercise of listing things you're thankful for, but the full-body experience of deep appreciation. When you genuinely feel grateful, your entire energetic field shifts to a frequency that attracts more experiences to be grateful for. It's a self-reinforcing cycle that can transform a life remarkably quickly. The manuscript warns against forced gratitude, however. Pretending to feel grateful while harboring resentment creates energetic discord that can actually worsen your situation. The key is to find something, anything, you can genuinely appreciate, no matter how small, and let that feeling expand naturally. Another powerful principle involves what the ancients called energy investment. They observed that whatever you give your attention to grows stronger in your experience. This isn't just about positive or negative thinking, it's about understanding that attention is creative energy. Where you invest that energy determines what manifests in your life. Most people unconsciously invest huge amounts of energy in what they don't want. They worry about potential problems, Replay past hurts, imagine worst-case scenarios. Each moment of attention given to these things is like watering weeds in a garden. Then they wonder why their lives are full of exactly what they didn't want. The ancient practices teach redirection of energy investment. Instead of fighting against unwanted thoughts or experiences, you simply redirect your creative energy toward what you do want. It's like a martial artist who doesn't meet force with force, but redirects the opponent's energy. You acknowledge the unwanted, but you invest your creative power in the wanted. This requires tremendous discipline at first. The mind is habituated to problem focus, trained by evolution to scan for threats. But with practice, you can retrain your consciousness to scan for opportunities, to focus on solutions, to invest energy in creation rather than prevention. The scroll describes specific exercises for developing this capacity. One involves spending a few minutes each morning visualizing your ideal day unfolding, not as fantasy, but as a way of pre-investing energy in positive outcomes. Another involves catching yourself throughout the day when you're investing energy in problems and gently redirecting that energy towards solutions. As we go deeper into the manuscript's teachings, we encounter the principle of cycles and rhythms. The ancients understood that nothing in existence moves in straight lines. Everything follows cycles: expansion and contraction, activity and rest, manifestation and void. They observed these cycles in nature, the seasons, the moon phases, the tides, but they discovered that human consciousness also follows predictable rhythms. There are times when manifestation comes easily, when synchronicities abound, when everything flows. And there are times when nothing seems to work, when obstacles appear everywhere, when even simple tasks feel difficult. Most people fight against these natural rhythms, trying to force productivity during rest phases or wasting active phases in hesitation. The ancient wisdom teaches us to recognize and work with these cycles instead of against them. When you're in an expansion phase, that's the time for bold action and new beginnings. When you're in a contraction phase, that's the time for reflection, integration, and preparation. The manuscript provides methods for tracking your personal cycles. It describes how to recognize the subtle signs that indicate which phase you're in. It teaches how to maximize expansion phases and how to use contraction phases for deep inner work that prepares the ground for the next expansion. Understanding cycles removes so much struggle from life. You stop beating yourself up for not being productive during natural rest phases. You stop wasting expansion phases in self-doubt. You begin to move with the rhythm of your own consciousness, and life becomes less like swimming upstream and more like sailing with the wind. The ancient masters also understood group cycles, how collective consciousness moves through phases that affect everyone. They tracked these larger cycles through astronomical observations, understanding that human consciousness is influenced by cosmic rhythms. We're currently in a phase they predicted thousands of years ago, a time of great awakening, but also great challenge, when old structures collapse to make way for new ones. Another profound principle the scroll reveals concerns what the ancients called the mirror of relationships. They discovered that every person who enters your life, especially those who trigger strong reactions, is reflecting something within your own consciousness that needs attention. This doesn't mean you're responsible for others' behavior. It means that the universe uses relationships as a perfect feedback system to show you aspects of yourself that are hidden from direct view. The person who irritates you is showing you something you haven't accepted in yourself. The person who inspires you is reflecting dormant potentials within you. The person who betrays you is revealing where you've been betraying yourself. This principle transforms how you approach relationships. Instead of trying to change others or blaming them for your reactions, you use every interaction as an opportunity for self-discovery. You ask, what is this person showing me about myself? What quality in them triggers me, and where does that quality exist within me? The manuscript describes this as one of the fastest paths to consciousness expansion. Relationships become laboratories for transformation. Every conflict becomes an opportunity to heal something within yourself. Every attraction becomes a chance to activate dormant aspects of your being. But this requires radical honesty and responsibility. It's much easier to blame others than to look within. It's more comfortable to be a victim than to recognize your creative participation in every dynamic. The ancient practices include specific exercises for using relationships as mirrors, for extracting the wisdom from every interaction, for transforming reactive patterns into conscious responses. As we approach the deeper mysteries within the scroll, we encounter teachings about the nature of time itself. The ancients perceived time not as a linear progression, but as a spiral, where past, present, and future intersect at every moment. They understood that healing the past literally changes the present and future, and that embodying your future self transforms both present and past. They developed practices for what they called time weaving, consciously working with the threads of time to create more favorable outcomes. This isn't about changing what happened, but about changing your relationship to what happened, which literally alters its effects in your present experience. Imagine your life as a vast tapestry being woven. Most people think the past is fixed. Those threads are already woven and cannot be changed. But the ancient wisdom reveals that by changing the meaning and emotional charge of past events, you literally reweave those sections of the tapestry. The events remain, but their influence transforms. Similarly, by connecting with your future self, the highest version of who you're becoming, you can receive guidance and energy from that future state. The practices include specific meditations for communing with your future self, for receiving wisdom from who you're becoming, for allowing that future self to guide present decisions. This collapses the illusion of linear time and reveals what the mystics have always known. All time exists simultaneously, and consciousness can navigate between different temporal states. Your past self, present self, and future self are all accessible in this moment. Healing can flow backward and forward through time. Wisdom can be received from any point on your timeline. The manuscript warns that these practices require grounding and integration. It's easy to get lost in temporal exploration and lose touch with present-moment reality. The key is to use time weaving for practical transformation, not escapism. Every journey through time should result in concrete changes in how you live today. Now we reach one of the most guarded secrets in the scroll, the principle of void states. The ancients discovered that between every thought, every breath, every heartbeat, there exists a gap, a moment of pure potential where the ordinary rules of reality are suspended. In these gaps, profound transformation can occur instantaneously. Most people fear emptiness, silence, stillness. They fill every moment with stimulation, every silence with words, every stillness with movement. But the ancient masters sought out these void states, recognizing them as doorways to the infinite. In the gap between thoughts, they found the source of thoughts. In the pause between breaths, they touched the eternal. In the stillness between heartbeats, they discovered their immortal nature. The practices for accessing void states are deceptively simple, but require great patience and precision. One involves watching the breath and noticing the natural pause after each exhale. In that pause, before the impulse to inhale arises, there's a moment of perfect stillness. By gently extending that pause, not through force but through relaxed awareness, you can enter deeper and deeper states of void. Another practice involves observing thoughts without attachment, watching them arise and pass like clouds in the sky. Eventually, you notice the gaps between thoughts growing longer. In those gaps, you experience consciousness without content, pure awareness aware of itself. This is what the ancients called touching the source. In void states, the deepest healing occurs. Patterns that have resisted years of work can dissolve in moments. New capacities can spontaneously emerge. Direct knowledge can be received without the mediation of thought. But the manuscript emphasizes that void states cannot be forced or grasped. They're entered through surrender, through letting go, through becoming so still that stillness itself takes over. The ancient masters spent years developing the capacity to enter and sustain void states. They discovered that regular contact with the void transforms the entire structure of consciousness. Fear dissolves because you've touched that which cannot die. Attachment loosens because you've experienced the fullness of emptiness. Struggle ceases because you've found the effortless source of all effort. Another crucial principle the scroll reveals involves what the ancients termed consciousness fields. They discovered that thoughts and emotions don't just exist inside individual minds. They create fields that extend beyond the body and influence the environment. When enough people share similar thoughts or emotions, they create collective fields that can influence everyone within them. This explains why certain places feel sacred while others feel oppressive, why groups can suddenly shift into mob mentality, why being around certain people lifts your spirits while others drain you. You're not just interacting with individuals, you're navigating invisible fields of consciousness that affect your own state. The ancient practitioners developed sensitivity to these fields and methods for creating beneficial ones. Before important gatherings, they would spend time purifying the space energetically. They understood that the quality of consciousness in a space affects everything that happens there. Modern science is beginning to validate this through studies on morphic fields and collective consciousness effects. But the real power comes from learning to generate your own consciousness field. Instead of being at the mercy of whatever fields you encounter, you can create a field of peace, love, or clarity that extends around you. This isn't about forcing your energy on others, but about maintaining such a stable state that others naturally entrain to your frequency when they're ready. The manuscript describes this as one of the highest services, becoming a living lighthouse whose mere presence uplifts the collective field. It requires tremendous inner work to maintain a beneficial field, regardless of external circumstances. But those who master this become catalysts for transformation wherever they go. The scroll then reveals teachings about what the ancients called reality streams. They perceived that multiple versions of reality exist simultaneously, like parallel rivers flowing side by side. Your consciousness determines which stream you're experiencing, and it's possible to shift between streams through specific practices. This isn't about denying current reality or escaping into fantasy. It's about recognizing that the reality you're experiencing is one of many possibilities, and you have more power to shift between possibilities than you've been taught. Every choice you make, every belief you hold, every emotion you sustain is like a rudder directing you into different reality streams. The ancients developed what they called stream jumping practices. These involve identifying the feeling signature of the reality you want to experience and cultivating that feeling so strongly that you naturally shift into that stream. It's like tuning into a different radio station. You have to match the frequency of what you want to receive. They discovered that the key to stream jumping isn't mental visualization, but emotional attunement. You have to feel the reality you want to experience as if it's already happening. This feeling must be genuine, sustained, and embodied. When maintained consistently, this feeling state acts like a tractor beam, pulling you into matching circumstances. The manuscript warns against attempting to jump too far too fast. Like a diver who must decompress gradually when ascending, consciousness needs time to adjust to new reality streams. Trying to force massive shifts can create instability and backlash. The wise approach is incremental shifting, gradually moving into better and better streams while maintaining grounding and integration. As we near the final revelations of the scroll, we encounter perhaps its most profound teaching, the principle of sovereign creatorship. The ancients discovered that at the deepest level, every conscious being is a creator, endowed with the same creative capacity that brought the universe into existence. This isn't metaphorical. It's the literal truth of what you are beneath all the layers of conditioning and forgetfulness. But this creative power has been dormant in most humans, suppressed by beliefs in limitation, unworthiness, and separation. The ancient practices were designed to reawaken this sovereign creative capacity, to help practitioners remember and embody their true nature as creators of reality. This awakening doesn't happen overnight. It requires dismantling layers of false identity, releasing attachment to victimhood, and taking radical responsibility for everything in your experience. It means recognizing that you're not at the mercy of external forces, but are the author of your life story, even the challenging chapters. The manuscript describes specific initiations designed to activate sovereign creatorship. These involve facing your deepest fears, reclaiming projections, and ultimately standing in the full power of your creative authority. It's not about ego inflation, but about humble recognition of the magnificent truth of what you are. When sovereign creatorship awakens, life transforms from something that happens to you into something you consciously create. Synchronicities multiply because you're aligned with your creative flow. Manifestation accelerates because you're no longer fighting yourself. Joy becomes natural because you're expressing your true nature. But with great power comes great responsibility. The scroll emphasizes that awakened creators must use their power wisely, in service to the highest good. The temptation to create solely for personal gain must be transcended. True creators understand that their individual good is inseparable from collective good, that what benefits one must benefit all. Now we reach the final revelation, the culmination of all the teachings, the principle of unity consciousness. The ancients discovered that separation is the foundational illusion from which all suffering springs. At the deepest level of reality, there is only one consciousness appearing as many, one being playing all the parts in the cosmic drama. This isn't a philosophical concept, but a living reality that can be directly experienced. When the veils of separation thin, you recognize yourself in all beings in yourself. You see that harming another is literally harming yourself, that helping another is helping yourself. Competition transforms into collaboration. Fear dissolves into love. The entire game of separation reveals itself as just that. A game, a play of consciousness with itself. The practices for realizing unity consciousness involve systematically dissolving the boundaries between self and other. Starting with loved ones, you practice seeing through their eyes, feeling through their hearts. Gradually, this expands to include strangers, then those you've considered enemies, then all beings, then existence itself. This isn't loss of individuality, but expansion of identity. You remain a unique expression while recognizing the unified source. Like waves on the ocean, each distinct but all water. The ancient masters who realized unity consciousness didn't become passive or detached. They became more effective because they could work with the whole instead of against it. The manuscript concludes with a warning and a promise. The warning is that this knowledge will transform you irreversibly. Once you truly see how reality operates, you cannot return to unconscious living. The responsibility of conscious creatorship will be with you always. The promise is that this transformation, though challenging, leads to a life of unimaginable beauty, power, and purpose. You who have received these teachings through whatever mysterious synchronicity brought you here, you are being invited into an ancient lineage of awakened creators. Not through formal initiation, but through direct activation of what you've always been. The scroll that found you today isn't separate from you. It's a reflection of your own deepest wisdom, calling you home. The practices embedded in these teachings aren't mere techniques. They're remembrances, activations of dormant knowledge within your cells, your bones, your breath. As you work with them, you're not learning something foreign, but reclaiming something forgotten. You're not becoming something new, but revealing what you've always been beneath the forgetfulness. And now comes the crucial moment of choice. Will you file this away as interesting information, or will you accept the invitation to transformation? Will you continue living as if you're at the mercy of random forces, or will you take up the mantle of conscious creatorship? Will you remain in the dream of separation, or will you awaken to the truth of unity? The ancient ones are watching, not from some distant realm, but from within your own consciousness. They are you are them, all is one in the eternal dance of awakening. The scroll has delivered its message. The seeds have been planted. What grows from here depends entirely on how you tend the garden of your consciousness. Remember, you didn't find this teaching, it found you. And it found you because you're ready, whether your mind believes it or not. Your soul has been preparing for this moment across lifetimes, gathering experiences, refining awareness, until finally, in this precious incarnation, you're prepared to remember the truth of what you are. The journey from here isn't always easy. Old patterns will resist. The sleeping world will try to pull you back into unconsciousness. Doubt will arise. Fear will test you. But now you have the map. You understand the principles. You know the practices. Most importantly, you remember that you're not alone. You're part of an ancient lineage of awakening beings, all supporting each other across time and space. As this transmission completes, feel the activation occurring within you. The words were just the carrier wave. The real teaching is happening in the spaces between words, in the silence beneath sound, in the stillness that holds all movement. Let it work on you. Let it awaken what's been sleeping. Let it remind you of your magnificent true nature. The scroll has been opened. The principles have been revealed. The invitation has been extended. What happens next is the most sacred thing of all. Your unique response to the call of awakening. Trust what you feel. Follow what lights up within you. Take the next step, even if you can't see the whole staircase. And know that as you walk this path, you're not just transforming your own life, you're contributing to the awakening of collective consciousness. You're adding your light to the sum of light. You're playing your irreplaceable part in the greatest story ever told, the story of consciousness awakening to itself. The ancient scroll has delivered its message through these words, through this moment, through the mysterious synchronicity that brought us together. Now it lives within you, ready to unfold its deeper mysteries as you're ready to receive them. The teaching continues not through words, but through your lived experience, through your direct discovery of these truths. Before you move forward, there's one final gift waiting. Another transmission has been prepared, building on everything you've just remembered. It contains the practical keys for implementing these principles in daily life. Don't let this moment of activation fade. Click on the next video that's appearing now, and let's continue this journey of awakening together. The scroll has more to reveal, and you've shown you're ready to receive it. See you in the next transmission, fellow traveler. The journey into truth continues.